Story 1 by Reddit user Victus Tech. I'm a major lover of the paranormal and spent a lot of time and effort in my life seeking out paranormal encounters and have become a seasoned occultist over the years through that passion. I have had numerous encounters in my life of both spiritual and tangible events of a paranormal nature. I've read a lot of these stories posted here, so for a long time I decided it's time to share a few of mine to contribute back to this archive. I'm going to detail 3 separate encounters that I've had when I lived at my parents' house. Their house was in a half-completed suburb which was somehow permitted to be built by sneaking it into a vast stretch of untouched state park in northeast Florida. The first story is the most unsettling for me. On our days off, right after high school, my cousin and I would routinely drive my parents' golf cart around the neighborhood and into the back of the large neighborhood because it was abandoned and completely overgrown. We knew all the abandoned construction trails through the forest and where they met up to the other roads that were completely unbothered by any suburban houses. It was broad daylight, probably around 2 or 3 p.m., and we had parked the golf cart coming off a trail and toward the concrete roads into the back part of the neighborhood. The grass on the unused lots was covered in weeds and grass that was probably 5 or 6 feet off the ground. We unleash the pipe, take a few hits. All is peaceful. The birds are singing, the air is clear. He takes another hit and passes it to me. I start to light the bowl, and before I take a hit, I hear my cousin say my name twice. Very seriously. I panic and think the cops have just pulled up or something. I look at him, and he's staring straight ahead, shocked, and just says in a low voice, "What the fuck is that, cuz?" I look up and down the road and I see it. It's a little man peering out from the grass on the left side of the road about 20 feet away. It looks like he is a naked humanoid completely covered in mud and crouched down as low as a person can go while still being mobile. It's not human, but it's human-shaped. With both of us staring at this creature, he backs up slightly, and then, it still disturbs me to remember this, Rhodey runs faster than humanly possible across the concrete road and into the grass on the other side. It was like a human moving as fast as an insect does when it panics. Imagine crouching down as far as you can without falling over, and then sprinting. This thing appeared to do just that. No words needed. I disengage the parking brake and gas it. We drive all the way to the front of the neighborhood and into the community center area, probably a mile away, and decide we should probably just go home. Lots of frustrated, "What the fuck was that?" followed because there was no rational explanation at all. We still talk about that story all the time. Funnily enough, about a year ago, my parents moved to a bigger house about 100 feet from where this happened, once the neighborhood started building back there again. The second story must have been about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a year or 2 after the first story. Very general timeline, but you get the idea. I was hanging out with a friend and his girlfriend as well as his weed dealer, which was a guy I had known for a long time also. I had stopped smoking weed by then, but everyone was good company and I would have a few beers while they did their thing. After a while, it became apparent that we would all have to give the dealer a ride back, and we decided we would all go together and could take my car. So we did. It must have been 9 or 10 in the evening. The dealer's house is a straight shot down a main road for about 15 minutes. We get on the main road through the city, and everything is completely normal for a while. We're almost to the neighborhood, and suddenly, police lights. Ah, fuck. We pull over into a well-lit gas station right in the middle and the whole routine unfolds. The officer accused me of pulling out in front of somebody trying to make a right turn, despite us having all green lights and riding in the middle of a 3-lane road. His reason for pulling us over was soon incomprehensible, but he ended up recognizing the guy in the front seat, the dealer. who fortunately didn't have anything on him. So, cut to waiting around and 3 more cop cars and the drug-sniffing dog. Of course, the dog hits off on nothing, and we get a whole kit and caboodle of stepping out while they search the car. Here's where the fun starts, because they begin pulling out a lot of my occult stuff, like an athame and wooden chest full of sigils and candles, and some other mobile all-purpose stuff. What are you guys, some kind of devil worshippers? I roll my eyes. I open the trunk for them. Nothing in there but a black robe and Ouija board that I've used for years. Of course, they take both out and wave it around and make fun of it all some more. The encounter ends without any great dramatization because they, expectedly, found nothing. I loathe that they had tossed around my tools, but I'm a pretty level-headed practitioner. We drive the dealer to his house and part ways, and head back to my friend's house to mess around and have a few beers. I head home around 2 or 3 and go to bed. Let me forewarn you that I have never had sleep paralysis or apnea. I don't dream particularly all that often or spectacularly. And I cannot recall a single instance of experiencing a hallucination in my life. So when I see things, I know there's more to it. I don't wake up. I'm still asleep. I feel like my spirit is brought to the surface of a deep water. I open my eyes and sit up, but I cannot see. There is a really weird noise, a rhythmic whooshing that is bringing me to wakefulness. My vision slowly expands outward from the center with a blue tinge. Very unusual. I immediately become aware of the fact that I am not alone, and I look into the room that expands out from the foot of my bed. It glows blue because of the moonlight coming from the windows at the opposite end. A few feet out from the foot of my bed is a high-top round table with 2 high-top stools on either side. I can hardly see it though, because there is a perfectly silhouetted goat-man-looking being, perhaps 7 feet tall and very wide, sitting on the high-top stool closest to me and facing my direction. He has moose-like horns and is the source of the whooshing, as he is breathing very heavily just like a runner after a hard run. I cannot see his features, but he is obviously looking right at me, and I'm looking at him. I blink. I am experiencing sleep paralysis, I think. I blink more. I become very afraid that there really is a 7-foot-tall goat man sitting in my bedroom, as this is not a usual predicament I have to face. I probably stare for about 10 seconds before I get hit with a sort of communicated feeling that the being had just come from doing something very awful to some people, one person in particular, and then rushed here to alert me of it. The breathing slows a little after another 10 seconds, and the being moves to get off the stool, the table behind him shifting and creaking as it does so. As soon as he hits the ground, he just fades out. I'm baffled. I'm afraid. But I'm relieved. I get up and turn the lights on, walk around the house, and everything is effectively normal. I sit and think about the whole thing, and the police incident didn't even connect in my head for probably 5 or 10 minutes. I go out for a smoke to observe the lake out back and the sky because the moon is bright and beautiful. It might have been a full moon, but I can't really remember. I calm down and go back to bed, having been relieved by the connection of events that I made. I don't remember what time this happened because I never looked, but it seemed like the middle of the night. I never had any further happenings in the vein of this experience, or seeing anything in the night, and I've never seen that being again. The last story wasn't super long after the Guardian of the Ouija board, probably less than a year. I worked at a movie theatre during this whole time period, and I had taken to jogging at like 2 or 3 a.m. after work. Perfectly serene, safe, and there was never anybody awake or driving around. The house was on a small triangle-shaped configuration of roads situated around a lake with only one road going through the forest to get back to the main neighbourhood. That road out was on the other side of the lake from where I was. Anyways, I come out of the garage and start walking down the road and shortly come up to the first right turn. The orange of the street lamps keep the roads pretty decently lit, but they cast a spooky feeling. As I round the corner on the sidewalk, I see another jogger down the way on the other side of the road. I think about how odd it is to see another jogger at this time of night, so I slow down and kind of stare. It occurs very quickly that this is not just another jogger, because most joggers are not 8-foot-tall ghostly shadow beings taking 6-foot steps. Due to the confusion, I don't even feel anything as I watch this tall, lanky shadow being run all the way down the road, right in front of me, and in between two houses and into the woods. He made absolutely no sound at all. As he passed right in front of me down the middle of the road, I saw that where his hands and feet should be, there was nothing but a fade to mist. Otherwise, he was just a 3-dimensional absence of light. After seeing that and taking a moment to process, I decided that if an interdimensional shadow being was running at full sprint away from something, I probably should too. So I turned around and noped out of there and back to my garage, to sit in existential terror. After about 30 minutes, I decided that I was going to conquer my fear and run around the triangle like I intended to before having a paranormal incident. I succeeded, terrified, and luckily nothing happened on that attempt. Anyways, these are my stories from my parents' neighborhood. I'm not sure if these sightings of beings have any relation to the forest, but I have a strong feeling that it does in some way. I'm an occultist, sure, but stories of those nature are far different in substance than seeing unexplained beings unprovoked. Before I continue to the next story, I just want to say thank you for choosing to watch this video, and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you are, please go ahead and hit the like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of the video, and if you don't already, subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Story 2 by Reddit user Alexandra Amor. Okay, I know this is going to sound crazy, but it just happened to me, and I'm terrified. Looking for some clues about what the hell happened. I think it happened due to accidentally entering the astral plane. Can you even do that? The other night, I had like half of an edible. I smoke a lot, so this is not unusual for me, nor was I more high than I normally am. And I was looking at myself in the mirror, noticing my self-harm scars, when I had the thought, this is going to be the last time I self-harm ever. The way the thought came was so weird. It just hit me suddenly and felt so strong, like it didn't come from my own mind. I started thinking about it and a lot of resistance to the idea of never hurting myself again. I decided I needed to sit down and think this out, so I turned off the lights and sat down on my bathroom floor. This was clearly a mistake. I sat down and closed my eyes, and almost immediately I felt like I was in a different place. The best way I can describe it was a large white mansion, like Kim and Kanye's house. Just massive rooms with white floors and walls and ceilings. I somehow knew that this was my body, or my being, and I was trying to find my way out. I found my way out and entered an entirely white space, just white nothingness. That's when it started. The best way I can describe these entities is that they were giant black squares of TV static, vibrating and moving super fast. They were in two corners of my vision and kept speeding towards me, and then backing away, and then coming again. I immediately sensed an awful evil energy coming from them. I was immediately filled with dread and horror and terror, but it wasn't just my emotions reacting to the entity. It was the evil energy coming from it. I know that I couldn't let them get closer to me, but they kept speeding towards me, and whatever it was entered my body. I felt the dark, evil energy enter into me. I immediately came out of that space, was back, fully conscious on my bathroom floor, and I could feel this entity inside of me. It felt like my body was full of this buzzing static and it was moving within me at breakneck speeds. Then the attacks started. They lasted about a minute or so, and I would have 10 seconds-ish breaks in between each one. In between each attack, I would still feel the energy within my body during the attacks. It felt like it was inside of my consciousness. The best way I can describe it is that it was like a ball being rattled in a cage at hyperspeeds. It felt like that, but inside my mind or consciousness, moving super fast, rattling back and forth inside of me with this terrifying evil energy. It was incredibly painful, but I can't tell you where it was hurting me, or in what way it hurt. It felt like I was going crazy. I could rationally think this whole time, but I knew that this thing wasn't just in my body. It was in my mind, consciousness, spirit. That's where I felt these attacks. During this whole time, but especially during the attacks, my entire body was cramping up in synchronization with how the entity was moving inside of me. I don't know how to explain how terrifying it was. This thing was inside of me. Once this started, I immediately knew that it was something paranormal or supernatural, that this was not my imagination or psychosis, or a hallucination or a dream. And I immediately decided that I needed to kill myself, because I'm not living with a demon or spirit inside of me. I started recording a video as my suicide note, which I have now watched back, but there is zero indication of anything happening to me. All that's visible is me sitting on my bathroom floor, crying and screaming and clutching my head. This went on for probably half an hour, and at one point I screamed, "Get out! Get the fuck out of me! Never come back!" Something along those lines. And I felt it leave. It felt like this evil demonic energy was sucked out of me, starting from the far corners of my body, gathering in my chest and stomach, and rushing out of my mouth. For a brief moment I felt that it was gone. I was normal and myself again. The shaking and cramps and rattling and buzzing inside of me was gone. And then it came back and started attacking me again. Eventually the attack stopped, and only the buzzing was left. I managed to get a few hours of sleep, and over the course of the next few days and a lot of praying, the buzzing sound slowly faded away to the point where I now feel normal again. However, because it came back again after I told it to get out, I'm scared that it's still inside of me, and it's just laying low, waiting for its moment to hurt me again. I'm so confused about how I was able to expel it. I felt it leave me, but then it immediately returned. The only understanding I've been able to come to through talking to some people is that I somehow accidentally entered the astral plane spirit realm, and that's where the entity was able to attack me and attach itself to me. The only thing I've experienced that I can possibly relate to is that years ago, sometimes when I would get high on weed and lie in bed at night, I would feel like there was a vortex sucking me down into the bed. And it was accompanied with these awful feelings of dread and horror. I think that maybe this entity has always been with me, or has always been around me, biding its time, and that me accidentally entering the astral realm allowed it to finally possess and exist inside of me, not just around me. I also think that it might be attached to my decision to not self-harm anymore. Maybe that entity was a root cause of my depression and self-harm, and this was its way of trying to defend itself. Or a last-ditch attempt to get control of me and to get me to kill myself. I'm really scared. Has anyone experienced anything like this? What do I do? How do I know if it's gone or not? What is this evil thing that was inside me? Did I defeat it, or is it still there waiting for its moment? Story 3. By Reddit user Plastic Lightbulb. This happened when I was 9 years old, so more than 10 years ago. I must mention, though, I have a really good memory, so my age doesn't matter that much, especially since the experience was shared. My class went on a 5-day-long trip to the beach. We had swimming lessons and learned about water life, but that's not important. We were staying at a cheap resort that had multiple buildings with rooms. One building where they served food and a playground for kids. All buildings had bars and windows, which creeped me out as a kid. It was for safety reasons. It was after we had lunch, maybe around 2 p.m. I was sharing a room with two friends. I'll call them M and L. The window was on the opposite side with the wall than the door. There were two bunk beds on the left and right side of the room, but under one of the beds on the right side, there were lockers instead of the bottom bed. Elle and me were sitting on the bottom bed closest to the window on the left side of the room. We were facing the lockers and were talking to M that was sitting on the bed that was right above them. I can't remember what we were talking about, but all of a sudden Elle has gone quiet, pointing towards the lockers. I looked there too, seeing the thing she was looking at. There was this thing, almost invisible, but we could still see it. It was transparent. We could see through it, but the space behind it was distorted, kind of like looking through water or very hot air above the road in the summer. It was in the shape of a human, but had no outlines of hair or clothes visible. Its hands were by its body and its legs were close together. It looked more two-dimensional than it did 3D. Like a shadow, but weird. We could clearly see it was not on the lockers but in front of them though. We called Em and she came down to the bed we were on. She was scared very easily, so this completely freaked her out. Elle and me still had our eyes on that thing. It suddenly disappeared, but then appeared again in front of the door. At that moment, Elle turned away too and was in the corner of the bed with Em. I kept looking at it. For the next part, I'm not completely sure if it happened or if I made it up as a child, but the figure started to move quickly towards the window. When it passed me, I saw a frozen picture of a human figure running. Then it disappeared. We didn't see it disappear. It was kind of trippy looking at it for such a long time, so at some point, we just realized it wasn't there anymore. It wasn't sudden. All of us then went and told this to our teacher, wanting to move to another room. He didn't believe us and gave us extra work to do for disturbing him. I then saw something similar, but 5 years later. I was sitting in a spinning chair in my room at home, and I saw something transparent move near one of my walls. I didn't see the shape of it because it moved too quickly. Even now that I write about this, I literally get tears in my eyes because I was so scared at that time as a kid. I didn't feel anything bad and didn't feel threatened by that thing. It's just the feeling that it was real that's bothering me. The following stories are from people's experiences during astral projection. Story 4. By Reddit user Solar108. Here is a little but interesting experience I wanted to share with you guys. It was my second experience with the Ophanim. First, I have to say I'm not Christian or religious in general, and I see these kinds of beings as higher dimensional entities. This experience started with a dream, I think. But nonetheless, I was fully conscious, but I am not physically there. It wasn't instant lucid. I was in the turning circle in my street during the day, but there were no people around. The only two beings that were there were two Ophanims. The first one morphed into my size. It looked really like the classical Ophanim, with multiple green wings and wheels covered in eyes which were rotating into another and radiating golden energy. In the middle of the rings was its energy center, but my mind couldn't comprehend what I saw when I tried to focus inside. However, I did not interact with the first Ophanim, so I went to the second one. This one was larger and was hovering above me. It appeared as one giant ring made of bismuth crystals with dominant colors of purple and turquoise. It had around 8 colorful eyes, every eye in a different color. Every eye was in an angular socket, and from every socket was coming white light in the form of a pointed beam-like sun ray. When I focused on the light ray, I could see that it was made of many ancient symbols that will form the pattern of the sun ray. I communicated telepathically with it, and it said something like, "Okay, let's do it." Suddenly, it teleported us to the sky far above the clouds. I could almost see space beginning above me, and under me were the cloud cover. I was falling down in high speed like I was driving through the earth. While diving down, I would fall many times through the ring of the Ophanim, like in a loop. It was an amazing and fun experience, and that was all that happened there. I also never reached the ground. Story 5. By Reddit user Throwaway Astral Guy. Today, there is no sense of anyone waiting for me when I reach the induction phase. After leaving alone, I travel upward, and again, I am in an unfamiliar setting. Slowly, I realize I am sitting on the throne in the same room I visited previously. I ask who is with me, and the mantis entity reveals himself to be slightly in front and to the right. He is not sitting in the chair next to me, thus I am in a slightly elevated position. It feels uncomfortable, perhaps disrespectful, to be sitting on the throne. I ask if we can finally communicate today. He replies we're almost there. I'm requested to look into his eyes again. Quite difficult to do so. My eyes dart between his left and right eyes. There is a white spark inside his head, which is easier to focus on. I somehow understand that this is part of his soul. Some background noise near my physical body is intruding into this session, and he asks me to focus on his eyes again. Again, I tell him it seems like we were communicating just fine. He explains that once this process is over, our communication will be on a higher level, and they will impart some sort of secrets. There is a nuance to the idea of secrets, which differs from the word as we know it. It seems to reference things I already know, or should know, but have forgotten. As I continue to struggle with focusing, he admonishes me to the effect of, "Do you want to do this or not?" This is the most emotional outburst I have encountered from any of the entities so far in my journeys. With difficulty, if I concentrate on allowing his mind to fully enter mine, I can achieve a meditation-like state where he can do his work. I realize that there is a distinction between what he is doing now as opposed to the previous days. He picks up on the fact that I realize this and tells me he is now working on syntax. Bits and pieces of memories and mundane slices of life are being spliced in a way that makes little sense. Once again, I lose track of time, place, sense of self. Closure pulls me back before the process finishes. As I leave, he tells me we are almost finished with this phase of increasing our communicative skills. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know there is a ton of content out there, and I sincerely appreciate you watching this right through to the end. Again, if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit the like button, and if you don't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and select the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. Also, please leave a comment on this video, let me know what you thought of it. Comments really help with the YouTube algorithm and will really help my channel to grow. Also, let me know what type of videos you would like to see more of on this channel. That really helps me branch out into new subject matters. If you have a story you would like me to narrate, please email it to me at stories@daredevil.com. I'm getting really close to my next major milestone of 100,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who is continuing to subscribe to this channel and contributing to its growth by liking videos and leaving comments. I'm currently in the process of working on a 3-hour Wendigo story video featuring completely original stories. Once I reach 100,000 subscribers, I'll have that ready to release for you all. If you want to support my channel even further, there are a number of ways you can do so. You can buy me a coffee via my Ko-fi account, check out my Teespring store and consider purchasing one of my shirt designs, or simply help me out by sharing my content with anyone you might think is interested in watching it. Thanks again.